What's happening, you beautiful geeks and geekettes, and welcome to another express episode of Chris's Custom Collectibles. And today is the beast himself, Ninja Spawn. Look at him. Look how beautiful this figure is right out of the box. I've been holding onto this thing for a couple of months. I've been trying to figure out something different that I can do with this figure. Now, originally the scimitars that he's holding, or shamshears, were in the back holsters, but I've swapped them out for the two katanas that he also comes with because I want him holding these. These are beautiful and badass, and I want some blood spray on them. And for that, we're going to be incorporating some clear embedding resin that we're going to be sculpting onto the actual blades themselves on a silicone bed so we can lift it straight off. But in terms of detailing, I want to do something different, especially on the black portions of Spawn. I want to do almost a gray wash and scour away the excess. That way it kind of replicates muscle shading that you would see of Spawn in the comic books. Apart from that, you know, you got your shoe polishers, your rub and buffs and stuff like that, and highlighting with oil colors, especially on the shrouds and the wraps and stuff like that. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. And I also want to add a fabric cape or remnants of a burnt cape that's going to be blowing in this direction, much like his tunic. Now, I also am tinkering with the idea of adding some chains, especially around the belt here, maybe 2 or 4 chains. Not sure yet, but I want to have the links all glued so it looks like it's a freeze frame from a film or a comic book panel. Now, thanks to the power of editing, I've gone ahead and soaked the figure in very, very, very warm water for about 10 minutes to soften up all those beautiful joints so I can take him apart and also take the leather armor off and stuff like that, and any pieces that have been glued together, which we will glue back together at the end of the video. So with that being said, let's get to pimping this bad boy out.
Oh, it's time for some shitty commentary.
Now, because I didn't have a grey acrylic on standby, I got a Liquitex ivory black and titanium white and mixed them together until I found that happy medium with my grey. Added a bit of water just so it's not too watered down, because I do want some decent coverage and for it to soak into the figure pretty well. I did have to work it a little bit at first. As you can see, it was beading away, but as it starts to cure, it does set there pretty nicely. And I do love the kind of blackish grayish tone going on there. I feel it's very reminiscent of the live action Spawn suit from the 1997 film, and just grabbing a scourer sponge and scouring away the excess. And what was left was just nice, beautiful, muscular detail that was very reminiscent, like I said, of the movie suit, but also of the comic book look of Spawn. Now, of course, we're going to get some black shoe polish, and I'm doing the shin armor, I'm doing the gauntlets, and also his torso leather armor. So I don't want to rush this, so to speak. I really want to take my time, make sure it gets into all the nooks and crannies, and there's no dabbing away of the excess. We're letting all of this set. And I should also mention I'm doing this over the entire head sculpt, minus the eyes on this one, and also his tunic and belt. So again, taking your time, making sure to get into all those nooks and crannies. Now, once that was set, I got myself an A2 Scarlet Hue Student Acrylic and very lightly started dry brushing over the areas that have the red wrapping. So obviously the head sculpt, we have the thigh wrap, and also just some little parts of the gauntlets and the shin armor at the back on the calves. So again, taking your time. Now, when it came to the leather armor, it's a Naples Yellow Hue Winton oil color, like what we did with Hazmat Suit Batman last week. Again, it just has a nice leathery old school texture to it once you have that complementing the black shoe polish. And I was really happy with how that came out, and even on the belt as well. Now, I did seal all these up with the matte sealer from Rust-Oleum, the chalk matte sealer, just to make sure that that oil color wasn't going to fade off. Now, when it came to his actual tunic, there was no shoe polish, but it was just an ivory black Winton oil color. I just wanted something that looked different from the rest of him, if that makes sense, because I kind of want the tunic to match the cape. Now, for the actual blades, I sprayed them with a flat black from Rust-Oleum, and as always, we're going to grab our good old mate, some Silver Leaf Rub and Buff. And again, I wanted to highlight how beautiful the detail is on these blades, the insignia, the inscriptions and stuff like that. It looks absolutely lovely. Even though we're going to be bloodying the shit out of them, it still comes up a treat. And again, sealing them up with a matte sealer, otherwise that rub and buff is going to come straight off. So I'm just getting a burnt sienna and a titanium white and just very lightly going over the skull buckle just to separate it from the rest of the belt. And then I went in just with a burnt sienna oil color and just stained around the edges ever so slightly so it wasn't too clean looking. And at this stage, I felt it was fine to put the figure back together and then go ahead with the rest of the detail. Again, these figures are so well designed, you can pop them back together. Some pieces do require a hairdryer. But in this case, as you can see right here, some cheap and nasty super glue to fix the scabbards, is that what you call them? The sword holster thingamajiggy doohickeys. So now I'm getting the embedding resin with a few drops of the hardener, a couple of extra drops just to speed up the process. And we now have the swords on the silicon blocks here. So this is going to make sure that the embedding resin is going to come off easily. It's just going to peel right off. Now, I had some spare resin. I had a thought. I want a green energy thing pulsing from under Spawn's feet because, you know, it's Spawn. He has a lot of green energy. He can generate green energy. So I figured it's a bit of an experiment, but hopefully we'll make it work. Now I'm just grabbing a silver Sharpie and just highlighting all of the riveted areas on the armor and also the shin armor, gauntlets and stuff like that. Now I have two different thicknesses or gauges of chain here that I got from Spotlight and also a wire. So I thread the wire through the bigger chain because I want this a posable chain, looking all gory and gunky. And for the smaller chain, I wrapped it around one of these shin guards for that matter, and then capped it off with some hot glue. Now I'm just grabbing some liquid latex and brushing that on the chain. And when it's dry, you chunk it up and it looks like flesh and guts and stuff like that. So you kind of rub it up with your hands and fingers and stuff like that. And then grabbing that anodized red from Duplicolor and adding some blood and gore effects on it. It looks very reminiscent of Hellraiser, don't get me wrong, but it's Spawn. He's got to have his chains. Now this particular fabric here is a Marlowe upholstery fabric and it's a rust version. So this is actually the fabric that I used for the Samurai Spawn tunic and cape. Had some laying around and I just wanted a just distressed, weathered, disgusting looking cape as part of this figure. So we're grabbing some 40 grit sandpaper. We're also using a Stanley knife. We're going to be going in with the Winton oil color ivory black just to make it just look burnt. And we are burning it now, as you can see right there. So it's a mixture of oil color, fire, sandpaper, blades, everything that Spawn represents. And then just grabbing some cheap and nasty super glue and gluing it just under the leather armor right there. And then mounting the chains just tucked in on the belt so you can remove them, but they are also posable. Now that our embedding resin is dried, we're just going to very carefully peel these pieces off these silicon blocks. And this is a very stylized look. This is going to be dripping blood along with the green energy field that's coming from under Spawn. And when it comes to coloring them and the look of them, again, it's very over stylized and very comic booky. Now, I am heating this piece up with a paint stripper gun and I'm just putting it in that little cut off section of a paper cup, even though I did end up changing my mind and I had some spare resin, more spare resin, and made another one, and I ultimately went with the second one, as you can see right here. So there's the first one and that's the second one. I just feel it looks a lot more Spawn-esque to me, if that makes sense. Now again, grabbing that anodized red, the Duplicolor once again that we used on the chains, and coloring the gore effects on the blades there. So again, very stylized, over stylized, but also very comic booky at the same time. And I just love the look. It just looks like a pause freeze frame or a comic book panel come to life. Just something so gory, because to me, that's what Spawn represents. And I'm just going to grab now a green Liquitex ink, fed through my airbrush, dialed out on full, and airbrush back and forth on that energy field. Put it all together, and we're ready for the final reveal. And there you have it, bit of acrylic paint, some shoe polish, some fire, some embedding resin, and we've got ourselves a badass looking Ninja Spawn figure. Very happy with how this one turned out. Again, just wanting something a little bit different and like something you'd see in the comic book panels or from a live action film. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Wherever you are in the world, please have yourselves an absolute cracker of a day. I hope you're well, hope you're happy, be merry, be silly, and until next time, geeks and geekettes, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.